not to have your now we're recording it. If you'd prefer not to have your face turn up in the video, then that's fine. Feel free to turn off your screen. Otherwise, we'd love to see you. We'd love to see your artworks. If you could stay on mute for the moment, that would be fantastic, just to keep any background noise out. But later in the hour, we're going to be calling on everyone to see if they want to share their drawings that they've done and ask Micha any questions. Please feel free to pop any questions you have in the meantime into the chat and share your shorebird stories there. And finally, please keep in mind that this is an all ages event, so we might have some little people joining us today. So just remember that and keep it all squeaky clean. Yeah, I think that's it. The housekeeping.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Cathy. So this week we're going to be exploring the Arctic Tundra. We've learned it's an important breeding ground for some of our shorebirds, and every year literally millions of migratory shorebirds head off on this epic flight from Australia to their breeding ground. I can't speak tonight. I'm so sorry, everybody. To their breeding grounds in the insect-rich, mossy plains of the Arctic Tundra. And it's quite amazing that chicks only get a few weeks pretty much till they head off for their first flight. So there was just so much information this week I found incredible. What was a standout for you, Cathy?
I think I just probably the standout for me was learning about just the tiny window that birds have up there to feed, and a bit about the climate change and mosquitoes prompt, about how quickly things can change in terms of breeding cycles for prey and predator, and if those don't match up, that there can be some big issues. So I'm hoping to hear some more about that from Micha today.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think that some of the reports I read, and I shared a couple of charts in the post as well, and you can see that it's just that little movement, like literally a few weeks, can make a heap of difference to the success of these chicks and being able to get off on their first flight. So today we are jumping into the bar-tailed godwit. Really beautiful bird, especially in its breeding plumage. The colours are just amazing, aren't they? Yeah. It actually holds the world's longest record for a non-stop flight for any bird species. And it's so small.
They're incredible.
So let's hand over to Cathy to introduce tonight's special guest, and I'm going to get started on my drawing. So if everybody would like to grab their materials out, I'm going to share the prompt into the chat and on the Facebook chat as well, and I'm just going to pop myself on mute. Thanks, Cathy.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanda. I'm just going to spotlight Micha here and maybe myself for a second. No, I can't work that out. That's fine. I am so pleased to introduce to you Dr. Micha Jackson, a great friend of ours. She is a shorebird ecologist whose PhD focused on conserving shorebirds in human-dominated environments. And she's recently returned from Utqiagvik on the north coast of Alaska, where she was visiting and helping out with researchers that have been working on the shorebirds' Arctic breeding grounds there for more than 20 years. So I'm super excited to hear about that trip. And in a couple of days, she's off to Korea, which is on the East Asian Australasian flyway, to present about shorebirds as well. So she really knows the story from Australia right along the flyway up to the high Arctic. So I'm really excited to chat to you. And Micha, before we get started, we'd love to know what drew you to shorebirds as a researcher at the start.
Yeah, I guess there's sort of multiple aspects of shorebirds that really kind of drew me in. For one thing, I guess I'm a sucker for a really good story, and I think their story is just incredible. It's so engaging and entertaining to think about, you know, these tiny little chocolate bar sized birds doing this incredible thing every year. They're just kind of completely bonkers, and I love that about them. But I guess also I've always been a bit of a world traveler myself, and always felt kind of a bit at home everywhere and nowhere. So I appreciate that aspect of shorebird's lifestyle. I've always been, from kind of the very beginning of my career, just coming out of undergrad, I've been interested in looking at conservation across cultures. So looking at how different human cultures approach conserving the same species. So to have a species group that travels through so many different political boundaries and different approaches to government styles, languages, cultures, all the rest of it, that has always been really appealing. I started studying shorebirds in remote Indigenous communities in Cape York. I ended up doing my PhD research in China. I'm now based down in Canberra. So yeah, I guess it's just an interesting opportunity not only to study these amazing birds that travel through boundaries that they don't see, but also looking at how people both come together, but also how it threatens shorebirds because they are, so multi-jurisdictional.
Yeah, absolutely. They're completely birds without borders, which is a big part of Millie Formby's wing thread story that we've been following throughout the year. Yeah, they're so cool, and that's so cool to hear that you've really experienced or tracked them in all different parts of the chain along the flyway. Well, today we are illustrating the beautiful bar-tailed godwit, and Vanda's just put the prompt in the chat. Because Genevieve's not drawing with us today, we're going to all just be drawing, and Micha's going to present some slides for us, but we don't have one for the godwit. So what we just wanted to have a quick chat about now, and I've lost my page anyway. Oh my gosh, how crazy is that? I just flipped it open and it's here. Micha, for artists, what should we be looking out for when we're thinking about drawing a bar-tailed godwit that might distinguish it from other shorebirds?
Yeah, I think there's a few key features that you can think about while you're drawing bar-tailed godwits, and especially if you're a less than phenomenally talented artist like me, I think it's really key to kind of start with simple shapes and pick up on those key features. So for me, what a bar-tailed godwit sort of looks like, especially if you look at that picture there, especially during breeding and pre-migration, you start with a football. So they really are very, very kind of football shaped, really rotund, especially in that pre-migration period. They are one of the larger shorebirds that we have. So other than sort of eastern curlews and whimbrels, they're one of the bigger shorebirds we have. So they are a pretty nice chunky size. So for me, they've got this really sort of football shaped body, and then they've got those sharp tail feathers, which do have some barring on them, as the name suggests. And then they've got really quite a round head, a very, very kind of circular head with a circular eye. So they do have some of the rounder, more obvious kind of black eyes of shorebirds. Then you can see that kind of clear eyebrow is another key feature, whether in breeding plumage or not, you can still see that sort of straight line that goes both above and through the eye. And then they have, as you can see, a sort of slightly upturned beak. So it's not perfectly straight. It's a very long beak, slightly upturned at the end. And in non-breeding plumage, kind of more obviously than in breeding plumage, you can see that they have two different colors on the bill. So if you're drawing a kind of fun, more cartoony kind of shorebird, I think that's a nice feature to accentuate the fact that the tip of that bill is really dark and the upper part of the bill is really light. That's something that's kind of fun to play with when you're drawing. And then I think other than that, you can see on their backs that the feathers are quite motley. They're quite, compared to other shorebirds and even compared to other godwits, they're quite motley. So they're not very plain. They're really kind of vibrant colors going across the feathers on the back. And then of course in breeding plumage, you can pick up, especially for the males, that just block, brick reddish orange color. So I think all of those are potential things that you can pick up on while, drawing or painting your godwits.
That was brilliant, Micha. It was very, very complete. Fantastic. Well, if everybody wants to make sure they've got their pieces, they're drawing things out. I've just got a piece of paper today, and I did have pencils, but they're somewhere. Oh, here we go. This is what I'll use. Vanda, what are you going to be using today?
I'm going to be in my sketchbook because I realised I had a half a page empty, and I'm going to be using fine liners.
Awesome. All righties. Well, Micha, we know you have some brilliant photos from the field, and I think we might just let you roll with telling us a bit of a story about what they get up to up there while we all get going.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen and just tell you some stories from the tundra, just to kind of, get you thinking about some fun stuff related to shorebirds, but definitely encourage you to take that photo prompt from the chat or from the link and keep that, open on a different window on your computer, so that you can keep sort of drawing and thinking about those Godwit features, even while I'm talking about all sorts of random things about their life on the tundra. So I will give a crack at sharing my screen, and you can let me know if that works okay.
Thank you.
Does that look okay?
Looks perfect now.
Cool. Yeah, so I was really privileged this year to spend a couple of months fulfilling a very long-term dream of actually following these crazy birds all the way up to their, near the North Pole breeding grounds. So here in Oz, we're at the bottom end of where these shorebirds move as they go up and down the globe every year. And I really felt like, even though I had been studying these birds for about 10 years or more at that time, I felt like there was this whole important and mysterious part of their lives that I really didn't know anything about. So I was very fortunate to be invited to spend a couple of months in Utqiagvik, which is on the very northern coast of Alaska. So it's actually the northernmost part of the whole United States, seeing what these birds get up to there. So I just wanted to share a few kind of things that I found added to this sort of whimsical, befuddling, mysterious story of shorebirds' lives, and just share those with you while you're relaxing and drawing. So this is just a couple of random impressions that I had from seeing these birds on the tundra after being so familiar with them here in their sort of beachy environments in Australia. So the first thing that really struck me about these birds is that they really live two different lives every year, which I find just so fascinating. I think I'm someone who's quite good at, different clothes for different occasions. I'm a bit of a chameleon. I like to, behave and look very different in different settings. So that's something that kind of resonates with me. But until I really saw it in person, it didn't really sink in how different these birds' lives are every year. So, for example, we see these birds in huge flocks here in Australia. You heard from Millie at the last webinar about Broome. It's one of the places you can see the biggest aggregations of shorebirds anywhere in the world. Oriental pratt-and-call there occurred, people saw over 1 million birds over the course of a couple of days. Like, it's just incredible, the flocks. But in the tundra, the birds are very much just paired up. They spread out over this really quite flat, featureless landscape. And they really, other than sort of short periods at the beginning and end of the breeding season, you don't really see them in groups. So that was something that struck me as being very, very different. You see them like this paired up, and in there, they've each got their own little patch on the tundra. So that was quite amazing. Also, they obviously, one of the biggest features that people learn early on about shorebirds is how they change their clothes. So this is a photo of actually what we call, and there's no scientific agreement about which one is correct, we call this bird a grey phalarope. They're quite rare in Australia. This one turned up in Darwin, where I spend a lot of my time at the sewerage ponds there. And you can see why we would call this bird a grey phalarope. But this was one of the most common birds where I was in the Arctic, and it looks like this. You'd never call that a grey phalarope. And in fact, its other official name is red phalarope. So people who live in the Northern Hemisphere call this bird red phalarope. We who live in the Southern Hemisphere call it grey phalarope. And you can see from this photo why it makes, a complete transformation from drab to dazzle when it moves from the breeding grounds up to the tundra. This one's another example. This is a dunlin. So we don't get these in Australia, but they are very common in our flyway. This was one of the most numerous birds when I was doing my PhD research in China that I saw. It's just a bit of a strange quirk that they don't come quite as far south as we are. This is how they look on the tundra. So again, you know, they've got this beautiful black belly, these lovely, you know, kind of burnt chestnut feathers, a cap, you know, it's just a totally different costume. The other thing is they completely switch habitats. So we've talked a lot about mud. We had drawing prompts about different creatures in the mud, and all these different, you know, saltbush kind of plants. And that's how we're used to seeing the birds here. But on the tundra, they're like grassland birds. They're like, you know, sort of sparrows or something. You know, you see them amongst the grass and the flowers. So that also means that their diet totally changes. On the mudflat, they eat, you know, lots of seafood, little mollusks, things like eastern curlew will eat crabs. Sometimes they eat insect larvae in the mud, but on the tundra, they're mostly eating terrestrial invertebrates. So they're totally switching their diet for that time. And it's interesting, in where I was in Alaska, we were right on the coast, but when you went to the coast, although the ocean was also frozen most of the time, so that was part of the factor. But I mean, I never saw a shorebird on the coast, even though it was just a very short distance from the breeding grounds. They spent no time on the coast whatsoever. They were in the grassland the whole time. So that's another amazing transformation. So yeah, I guess that's my first impression from the Arctic, is just that these birds are really living, you know, two lives every year. Yeah, I guess before I go on to the next thing, does anyone have any thoughts or questions?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself for a second. Sorry, who was that? Someone does have a question.
That was me, sorry. I'm just wowed by everything you've just told us, and the challenge that you have in finding these birds in their different zones, you know, in the different plumage, especially the first bird you showed us. It doesn't look anything like. There's not even the shape doesn't even look similar. I don't get it at all. So yeah, just like to commend you and, you know, all of your team for the amazing work you do, and how you, the homework you must have to do to be able to recognize these birds as well.
Yeah, they really are. It's so different. It's just amazing.
I just can't believe that they can change from, getting things from under them. Like, you know, their bills seem perfectly developed to be pulling things out from under mud and stuff, and then go from that to a grassland bird. That's just incredible. And what's the habitat like up there?
Yeah, it's kind of a lot like, well, actually that photo is not even really, the flowers are there for a very short time. It's really just incredibly flat, very, very hard to distinguish anything. You know, if you get a little rise up and down, that's like a big deal. And when I first got there, you know, it was all covered in snow and the sky was foggy and white. So it's just like, I've got a selfie of myself, and there's just not, it looks like I'm standing in front of a white sheet. It's very, very featureless. Yeah.
Wow. And but so yeah, how did you, sorry, you might have said, but you might not have, I know that part of what you were doing up there was looking for nests and looking for the birds and doing that kind of monitoring. That's partly why they change their colors so much, isn't it, to blend in with the colors of the tundra?
Yeah, absolutely. So I might share a little bit now about their breeding strategies, because that's kind of the next thing that really occurred to me. But yeah, the team that I was invited to visit up there have been doing monitoring of these birds on their nests for more than 20 years. So that's really amazing. It's a program that's run by the US Fish and Wildlife Service. It's one of the longest running data sets anywhere in the world about shorebirds. Wow. And they've been doing all different types of monitoring of their nests, including how successful they are, you know, how often they abandon their nests, the timing of their nesting, all these kinds of things. And one of the things that really struck me, because I think we do tend to lump shorebirds together because they do have attractive features that are in common, and we see them in these big groups. And I think we do tend to think, especially of coastal shorebirds, as being quite similar. But something that really occurred to me on the breeding grounds was that even though these birds kind of look similar in their overall life history, their breeding strategies are really, really diverse. So you have some birds like this is a western sandpiper, the two birds together are Dunlin, who are real monogamous. And I think this is the story that gets told about shorebirds most often. Like they do this huge journey and then they pair up in one pair, and then the two parents share the nesting duties. And, you know, one parent will be looking after the eggs, the other one will go out and feed, and then they'll swap over. And that's very true for some species. But other shorebird species have a very, very different approach. And one of my favorites is that bird I mentioned earlier, this red phalarope. So based on everything you know about all other shorebirds and all other birds, from the peacock to everything else, which of these two birds do you reckon would be the male and which would be the female?
I'm guessing the more colorful one is meant to be the male.
So that is almost always the case in many birds, including shorebirds. But with this species in particular, it's completely the opposite. So the bigger, beautiful dressed up one with the black headdress and the big white mask, that's actually the female. And the much duller one that's swimming in the water there is the male. And on the breeding grounds, it's kind of the story that you hear from other species, completely reversed. The females come in, they mate with the males, they drop out a few eggs, and they say, see you later, gone, back out to sea, bye. And it's actually those more drab males that stay for weeks, and they do all of the parental care. So they incubate the eggs themselves, and they're extremely reluctant to leave the nest. So of all the birds, they're the ones that will sit on the nest the longest. Even if you get really close to them, I've seen ones you could actually almost go and pick them up off the nest. They're so reluctant to leave the eggs. Yeah. And then after the babies are born, the males basically stand around and they let the babies get warm, and then the babies will just kind of explode out from underneath them, feed for themselves for a few minutes until they get too cold, and they'll come back under dad's wings. And he'll do that for a couple of days, maybe up to a week or two, keep an eye on them, and then, as with other ones, he says, see you later. So this is a very kind of unconventional parenting arrangement compared with most birds. And then you have a totally different strategy again. This is a pectoral sandpiper. This is a bird that turns up in Australia in small numbers every year as well. And this one is the males just come to the breeding grounds literally for 2 or 3 days, make a complete pest of themselves, fly low, they scare all the birds, they boom, they have this big, chest sack that inflates, and they make this really irritating noise. The females are all kind of hiding for them, and then they leave. So the average time they spend there is just a couple of days, and completely opposite from the phalaropes. In this case, the females do all the work. They're much drabber, they stay with the eggs, they do all the parental care. So yeah, it just really struck me that across the different shorebird species, they've got really, really different strategies for their breeding, even though they're all kind of going to hang out in the same place. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Sonia's just written in the chat, wow, I've never seen a photo of them in their breeding plumage. Now the name makes sense. I was thinking the exact same thing, because when we get these birds in Australia, the pectoral sandpipers, they just look pretty similar to a sharp-tailed sandpiper. But that flaring of their, I don't know, is that a neck pouch? What do you call that?
We called it chesticles, but I don't think that's an official name.
Oh, love it. Yep, I guess that's where their pecs are. Makes sense.
Yep. And that, yeah, it does get, like, they inflate it when they're flying to make this really booming call as well. Yeah, they're a complete pest, really annoying.
Amazing. And so, yeah, while they're like, how short did you say just a couple of weeks before those babies have to pretty much be on their own? Is that what you were saying? Like, really quick growth? Yeah,
it's a very quick turnaround over the year. I think, depending, again, like I said, this particular species, the male's only there for a few days, but in general, shorebirds are kind of on the breeding grounds for like sort of 6 to 10 weeks maximum. And that's it. So they have a pretty narrow window. If something happens to their nest, which it very often does, they might have a second crack, but rarely a third. So they've pretty much got 2 chances. That the eggs take about 3 weeks on average to hatch. So they might have 1 or 2 cracks at that 3-week period. Most shorebirds lay 4 eggs. And they might, if they're lucky, get 2 cracks at it, and that's it for the year. And then they got to go that whole 11 to 15,000 Ks back to where they came from before they can have another go next year. Yeah.
And the babies often, because they can't stay up there and then just migrate a year later, they have to come out that first year.
Oh yeah.
Right? So and their parents don't like show them the way. What happens?
No, it's incredible. Yeah, the parents for the most part, even those beautiful phalarope males who take care of the chicks, for the most part, the parents leave a couple of weeks before, or at least a week before the babies, and the babies have to figure it out. So it's like, yeah, get from Alaska or Siberia to Australia on your own, no map, no nothing. See you later. Good luck. So yeah, it's one of the most amazing things about them, I think, that the babies can do that.
It's astounding. Cool. So you're going to tell us a bit about these nests then?
Yeah, I was just going to show a couple of egg pictures because I think there was a prompt about eggs a few days ago, and yeah, the eggs are certainly one of the really stunning features. So just a couple of examples. I think the eggs are so beautiful, and they make up a lot for really not very inspiring nests. Shorebird nests are usually called scrapes, and there's a reason for that. That's pretty much what it is. I think I'll start with the worst example. This really is just a scrape. This is a natural nest. These eggs haven't yet been moved, and they're pretty much just plopped out there like, yeah, okay, they wove a few pieces of dead veg together, but it's a pretty poor effort. So this is the eggs of a American golden plover, which is very, very similar to our Pacific golden plover that we have as a common resident here in Australia. So this one only has 3 eggs, which is more common in golden plovers than in other species. They usually have 4, so that it makes a nice, this is a 3 as well, but this nest is of a dunlin, and it's probably just hasn't laid the 4th egg yet. It's really unusual for them not to have 4 eggs for the most part. You get 3 occasionally, but yeah, I love these eggs the most. They have this, I don't know if it comes through there, but it's a bit of a like blue hue to the egg before that brown speckle goes on, and it's just absolutely stunning. This is back to our beautiful phalaropes. Their eggs are probably the most boring, but also kind of the most well camouflaged. And yeah, they do make, as you can see, those 4. So they usually have 4 together in facing each other, and they do make a bit of an effort to make a bit of a sort of cup for the eggs. But for the most part, they're really relying on the camouflage rather than a good nest to avoid predators. And I guess that's one thing I did want to say was that I was really surprised by just how high the nest predation is. These are some examples of the predators that like to eat the shorebird eggs on the Arctic, but the predation rate can be really quite high. So it's devastating, especially if you know a nest has been going for a couple of weeks and it's getting close to hatching, and then somebody goes in and eats them all. So this is an Arctic fox. That one strangely is still in its winter colors, which is a bit unusual. The bird in the middle is a Jaeger. So there's multiple species of Jaegers. These are actually a species of parasitic gulls. This is a long-tailed Jaeger. Longtails actually don't eat eggs too much, but there's 2 other species of Jaegers that do definitely predate on shorebird eggs. And then I suspect probably the most prolific predator is some of these large gulls, which in the region I was in, this is glaucous gull. They also nest on the tundra, and I think that they're probably one of the main, they are one of the main things that's eating the eggs. So yeah, tough life when you get up there. I think it's one of the sort of hidden challenges that shorebirds have. And obviously, talking about both this predation, but also, we're talking about that prey switching, about shorebirds relying on insects. Most of that tundra is frozen all year. So if it's too cold, there's no bugs there. So they have this very narrow window to get their breeding done, but also to get the timing right as far as when the tundra is melted and when the insects are available. So obviously they're extremely potentially sensitive to the impacts of climate change and that timing changing. And even the researchers are affected by that. It's a lot less certain than it was a couple of years ago or decades ago about when exactly do we need to be up there to be there for the right timing of the snow melting and the birds turning up to start breeding and everything, because that timing is definitely changing and it's definitely becoming more volatile. So I think we still don't fully understand how climate change is affecting these birds, but both human Arctic communities and all of the species who live up there are certainly at the sort of cold face of climate change. Because I think there's a figure that says, you know, in these northern latitudes, like where I was, the effects are magnified by sort of 6 or 7 times. So it's almost like a glimpse into the future of what, you know, the effects are going to be like, because as you get closer to the poles, those effects are sort of magnified. So yeah. I was just going to point out some of the other beautiful inhabitants of the Arctic, because I couldn't resist showing off some of my photos. So these are some of the other guys that we would see regularly day to day. And then, yeah, I guess my final thought was, I think being from Darwin, you know, the apex predator in the places that we see shorebirds are crocodiles. You know, on the beach at Lee Point in Darwin, which is where we see the biggest aggregations of shorebirds in Darwin. We always have to kind of look behind us at the creek to make sure there's no crocs there. And in the Arctic, yeah, you're looking out for polar bears. So it just really strikes me that these birds are moving from such extremely different ecosystems and different habitats. You know, the apex predators are just supremely adapted for that specific environment. Like a crocodile is just, it only kind of fits in that tropical band, and a polar bear only fits in that very near the pole environment. And yet these birds are using both of those places as key parts of their life cycle every single year. So I just think that's really amazing. And yeah, I think that's all that really occurred to me. Hopefully that's a bit of a whirlwind tour through the breeding grounds.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Thanks, Micha. And like, I mean, I know, I thought I knew shorebirds quite well, and I thought I was amazed by them already, but really thinking about just how incredibly adaptive they are to have exploited, you know, the best of 2 hemispheres and make that journey each year, and then what they're up against. They are truly just such a remarkable group of birds. And yeah, thank you so much for shedding a bit of light on what they get up to up there. Yeah, maybe I'll open it up for some questions. Micha, if you want to stop sharing, then we might be able to get everyone back on screen, and maybe people can share a bit of the art that they've gotten up to. Vanda, did you have a chance to draw?
Yes,
anything?
I'm slowly getting better at drawing and paying attention, but I still end up watching too much. That was fascinating, Micha. Thank you. So this is as far as I've got.
Hey,
Just trying to get the beak and the head right, because the neck's so long. It just seems too long compared to the shorebirds we've been drawing. So yeah, trying to get those proportions right. I think this one's ready to leave its migration site. It's a little bit thinner. Not quite opened.
Yeah, my one ended up a little bit thinner too.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I did very, very quick try and colour in rather than focusing too much. I don't know. It is very difficult because I really just wanted to hear what Micha was saying. But there's such a beautiful bird to colour in. It's such incredible colours.
Yeah, they're stunning. I like how professional you're getting as well, taping off your paper, Cathy.
It's such a quick ink. Well, it's I mean, my hand is undoubtedly smudging crap all over this, and then you peel the tape off and it looks so profesh.
It does. It looks so good. I look forward to seeing it finished. That's awesome.
So who else? Would anyone else like to share theirs? You want to put your hand up, maybe?
Just take yourself off mute.
Tina, perhaps?
Oh, beautiful. Wow.
That is so gorgeous, Tina. The eye is incredible.
Yeah, it's quite a, I don't know, the particular photo I'm working with is quite a two-tone, so I was just trying to capture that in the colours.
You've
And
definitely
every time
got the long neck. I mean, it is a real, it's not one of the features that I highlighted, but it absolutely is a feature of this bird. It has an uncharacteristically long neck for a shorebird.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Tina.
Beautiful.
Why you've got the brow there as well. It really gives so much definition to the head.
Thanks, Vanda.
Oh, it does. Sonia, were you about to volunteer? I bet you were. You're still on mute though.
Oh yeah, volunteer. I'm using watercolor pencil, so I still haven't watercolored it yet.
Oh, that's
yeah, this is
gorgeous.
what it's looking like at the moment.
Wow.
The colours are
That's
gorgeous.
fantastic. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Excited. Gav just handed me over his iPad because he's hiding in the corner to share. That's as far as he's got.
Oh, Gav, that's gorgeous. I love Gav's style.
It's really cool, isn't it?
He's got the
You've
feet down. The feet are
Love
so
your style, Gav.
difficult.
It's awesome.
Yeah, well done on the feet. I mean, this feet are just so
the
hard,
feet are
and those
so
ones look
difficult.
perfect.
Yeah, I think most of us have, well, not most of us, but certainly I have been avoiding drawing feet most of the time. All of mine are always on stumps.
Well, it's a good thing in the tundra because you could say that's right. Like on the beach, that's a hard sell because it's just bare sand. So you actually definitely can see their feet. But in the tundra, you got the little bits of grass and that like half the time you can't see their feet anyway. So you got a perfect excuse this week.
Exactly. Sonia had a question. Oh, was that Rowan? Were you about to show us yours? Yes. Excellent. Let me spotlight you.
Oh, cute.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
That's
So good.
fantastic. You got those bars on the tail feathers.
Bars, yeah, that's a very ecologically accurate tail.
Just
Yeah, the bill's a bit Dowitcher-ish, but
I was thinking it's like Nordman's green shank.
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
All right, nerds.
Sorry.
These are a couple. Actually, we've got 3 of our experts on the call in this chat, and it's so good to see their different takes on the different prompts. Okay, remove the spotlight. Sonia had a bit of a question. Sonia asked, do crocs and polar bears predate on the chicks, adults, and eggs, or just the adults while they're...
I should have said, I mean, they are the apex predators of the overall ecosystem, but I think that neither of them predate on shorebirds at all, I would say. Possibly partly because can't be bothered, but also, I mean, crocs, despite our nervousness on the beach, for the most part, do spend their time in the water. And like I said, the amazing thing on the tundra is that the shorebirds don't go near the beach. So the polar bears are completely, like they almost never come off the sea ice. So you see them from the beach looking out towards the ice. But we don't actually have to worry about them when we're going around doing breeding ground stuff because yeah, even that little bit inland, they really never come in there. So yeah, it's definitely foxes are the big mammal predator, probably in Australia as well, but shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But definitely in the Arctic, those Arctic foxes, they're quite a slight species really, and I think yeah, for them the eggs in particular are make a pretty happy meal. But yeah, I think despite them being the top predators in the system, I think for the most part they can't be bothered with shorebirds. not quick enough to catch the adults, and the chicks, yeah, eggs too small to be bothered about.
Amaria asks, what will happen when the woolly mammoths are reintroduced?
They'll step on them. That's what will happen.
Yeah, well, that would have been a big something that all shorebird researchers, I guess, are nervous about. Both with the beach nesting birds here and when you're up in the tundra, is like seeing those incredibly camouflaged nests and avoiding them.
Yep. Yeah, it's a constant worry. Yeah, because they're really, really hard to see. So you really have to focus on the behavior of the adults, and let them, with sometimes incredible amount of patience, can take up to an hour if you flush a bird for it to go back to the nest. But in general, that's how you find the nest, is kind of by outweighting the adults and letting them show you where the nest is.
Yeah.
Definitely preferable to traipsing around the tundra until you step on one.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic.
Vanda, did you have any other questions to ask? We've actually we're running early tonight.
For change. I know. That's because Misha's so concise and so full with her information.
Yeah.
Good to have an early mark on a Sunday. Everyone's got to get back in their brain back into the next week.
Yeah. I think we're just all pretending that there is no next week yet, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'm in denial till about 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
One day's not happening.
Definitely.
I am curious about what personal challenges you found up in the tundra, Micha. Was there anything that you personally had? I'm assuming there's quite a few things, considering it's not the most hospitable place to be.
No, it really wasn't. It was definitely one of the most challenging, certainly physically challenging field work I've ever done. I guess one of the things that was less challenging for me than I thought it would be, but definitely still had an effect is, it's 24 hours of daylight for the whole 2 months I was up there. So you have to be really careful because your body's telling you to just be awake all the time. So what I found was we kind of made our room really, 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 really dark. And I found personally that I could just tell myself to sleep at any time. I like if I went into a dark room, I would feel sleepy instantly because it was never dark anywhere else.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I dealt with it. But, it was really easy to just find yourself still up at 2 a.m. and not noticing that it was 2 a.m. and then, having a lot of work to do the next day. But yeah, I mean, in order to do the nest monitoring that has been ongoing with that program for a long, long time, you kind of have to be out on foot on the tundra in sort of hip waders. It's always wet there. Everything's wet. Like all the houses are up on stilts because it's just always, it's either snow or water on the ground all the time. So the walking, even though it's flat, is really challenging because you're either post holing into the snow before the snow melts, then you have this like very, very brief window of loveliness where the ground's still firm, but the snow's gone, and then that disappears and the ground's squashy and your feet just stick on every step. So it's just really, really challenging walking, and there's no kind of vehicle, like we don't use the vehicles anywhere in where that is. So yeah, it was just kind of 8 to 10.5 hours of tough walking every day. I think I did about 470 Ks by the end of the couple of months. So yeah, it was really really challenging that way. But I actually found that it was really hard to adjust to the sun going down again. When I got back, I had this like feeling of real dread and anxiety about the sun going down because I got really used to the sun never going down. So that was a readjustment challenge that I wasn't expecting. But then I guess just that isolation as well, just having like being out there 8 to 10 hours every day with just nothing, just concentrating, but just not interacting with anyone for that long every day was definitely something to get used to. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. The weather can be awful as well. Really foggy, rainy, freezing, windy, all those things.
Yeah, gross.
We really celebrated every nice day, that's for sure.
So nobody warned you before you went that you should go and do some gym work and get your fitness up?
Yeah, I definitely did. I put in an effort before I left, but it wasn't I wasn't quite up to the fitness level that I would have preferred once I got there.
That sounds absolutely incredible. You paint a really beautiful picture of what it'd be like, being out there and having to do that work and being in that environment, because it's really hard for me to imagine. So I assume it's hard for everyone else to imagine, what we see that as.
It's hard to describe, and the community there was just amazing. Like, it's a small, mostly Indigenous community of about sort of 4,500 people, and just thinking of them, like the fact that I'm like complaining about the 24 hours of daylight, but what about the 24 hours of darkness that they go through for months on end? It's an extreme environment for people to live in as well. And one of the things that I really noticed was how people's lives there are absolutely just so in tune with what's going on. Like, if it's a nice day, drop everything, spend the whole 24 hours doing things related to what animals are doing, whether that's getting out in the boat and hunting seals or whatever. People just completely adjusted their lives depending on what's going on, because you just, exactly like the birds, you have that short window of bounty and you have to take advantage of that because there's a very long winter coming. So that really, really struck me too.
Wonderful. So sorry, have I got time to ask one more question? Sorry, Cathy, I'm taking over.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm curious if the local Indigenous people are kind of in tune with what happens in that way, and obviously they're aware of the shorebirds coming, the different migratory systems that pass through the locales. Do they have a sense of custodianship or stewardship with the shorebird?
Yeah, it was really lovely because this year they had an inaugural shorebird festival there. So it was the first time they've had like a local community shorebird festival, and that was really wonderful because some of the elders participated in that, but people actually flew from all around the place, from Florida, from California and everything, all the way to the North Coast of Alaska to learn about these birds. But then also I think some of the community members who hadn't engaged necessarily with shorebirds as much before, they also learned a lot, and it was a chance for some of the elders there to talk about it. So yeah, that was really really interesting. I think community life there is very much revolves around whales and seals, and so the birds and snowy owls are a huge thing there as well, one of the emblematic things in town. So I think, as with many communities, like sometimes shorebirds are one of the less known features, but of course locals are very familiar with them, and the elders in particular. So it's beautiful to see that festival come together, and yeah, lots of different people both from the community and from elsewhere kind of come together to celebrate the birds.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And yes, hopefully they do it as a yearly thing, and it'll bring more business as well as more awareness to the shorebirds.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me and for leading this whole month. It's been, yeah, an amazing journey, and yeah, fun for someone who's not visually artistically inclined to just have a go at something different and something relaxing. So thank you for that.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad you've really enjoyed it. Do you have any questions, or is there anything you'd like to ask now you get a chance, Cathy, or anyone else?
Oh, always endless. I think I might have asked all my questions for today. So maybe we will have an early mark on this one, but I know that Vanda, you've got some things to share.
I do. I was just wondering if anyone else would like to share the artworks. I've seen the heads are down and they're busy. And Maria, would you like to come off and share it all? So lovely you could make it. Oh, just get you to unmute.
Wow, that background.
Sorry, talking to a muted thing. No, I already did mine this morning while I was sitting at the beach at Waratah Bay.
Ooh,
Beautiful.
that tail, there's the bar tails, and the waves. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I chose that picture because of the bar tail, but I regretted it because of the feathers. There were too many of them. Took forever.
But you do an amazing job with feathers and details, Amaria. I really am in awe of your work. Thank you so much for sharing it with us all month.
You're welcome.
I think that makes a really nice segue into sharing how grateful I am to everybody this month. It's been really incredible. We've had amazing artists, and all the love that's been shown to our artists and the support and the awareness coming from everything's been just filled my heart. I can't thank you all enough, really. But before I get gushy, because I kind of am at the moment, I'll jump on and share a couple of things that are coming up that are super exciting. We know we've only got 2 days left. So that's 2 more days. So that's going to be mind-blowing. What are we going to do on the 1st of November?
I know.
It's going to feel so weird. We've got 2 more days left, and we're finished with the tundra. So we've got 2 spare bird days, which is lovely because we get to cover a bird that I'm really fond of tomorrow. And I'll give you a hint, they've got little kind of cheesy wedges coming off their cheeks, if anyone can guess. But if anyone would like to join in, we'd love to have you be part of it. You can pick any of the prompts in the challenge, anything that brings you joy. I'll be keeping an eye on the hashtag Loki Loves Inktober 23 going forward, so you can use that in the tag, and also tag me at Loki Loves Art and Remember the World, so we don't miss any of your stuff. It's going to be wonderful seeing, I know a few of you are catching up, so it's been going to be great seeing your work coming in as well. And from the 3rd to the 6th of November, we've got something very special happening. I'm hosting an art fundraiser at lokiloves.com. We have amazing artists in our group who have been generously donating their artwork to Loki Loves Inktober 2023 fundraising campaign. It's going to be filled with just wonderful artworks of the birds from the prompts this month, so that you can fill your space with the beauty of the birds that we've celebrated this month. And even better, your purchase will support the wonderful work that Remember the Wild do. They're an amazing nature connection charity. I'm sure as more you've got to know about Cathy, you can see what a wonderful human being she is, and she's so giving and supporting, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what she and the rest of the amazing team at Remember the Wild offer. And with your support, they'll be able to support more projects like Millie Formby's Wing Threads Flight Around Oz. And if you haven't seen the documentary that they put together, make sure to go to iView tonight and watch it. It's fantastic. So you can expect a stunning collection inspired by a prompt list, and it's guaranteed to have something delightful for everyone. And with Christmas coming up, it's going to make for some really easy Christmas gifts. So I'd love your support to get the word out. Come along, buy some art, like, comment, share some of our fundraiser posts. Would be ever so grateful for your help to get that out there. And of course, support our wonderful artists who have donated their work so generously for this. It's been an incredible journey this month, and we've been privileged to witness all artists from all ages, all backgrounds coming together to create these remarkable works. The dedication, passion, and talent you've all shown has really breathed life into this challenge. And yeah, it's just contributed to the cause of shorebird conservation in a truly impactful way. Thank you so much. I also want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to every artist that shared the story. It's a testament for your love and for nature and your desire to make a difference. It's really, really heartwarming. Thank you so much. And finally, to the woman that I've got the biggest crush on, Cathy from Remember the World. Every conversation we've had inspires me, and your commitment just gives me hope that we can all be a cause for change. I can't thank you enough for your help and support running this challenge. It's not an easy thing to do, and we've had late nights and early mornings, and you've just made it all so much fun. Thank you.
Well, right. I mean, I can just only reflect the exact same back at you, Vanda. I think everyone here and a part of the challenge has seen the amount of effort that you've put in over the month and in the months leading up, and it definitely wouldn't exist without you and the years that you've done so far for Loki Loves Inktober, and the money that has contributed to environmental charities, and the awareness raising that it's done for different species and their habitats is enormous. And I really think with this challenge, it's so important to think about and remember just how much people can do in their daily lives for conservation and for wildlife through their own talents and through sharing stories with other people in the way that makes sense to them. Art has an incredible impact on people's emotions and the way they understand the world. So yeah, we are so grateful at Remember the Wild to be able to do something like this, and the only way we can do it is through you. So thank you so much. And I actually think that Vanda should get a little round of applause from the little group here, even if it's a quiet one. Thank you so much. Micha's just asked if there's a specific link to the fundraiser. Vanda, that'll be on the Loki Loves website in a few days, or?
It'll all be up on the Loki Loves website tomorrow, and there'll be links to it. It won't go live, so it'll all be hidden behind the screen while I do a bit of website page magic. But it'll all be live first thing on the 3rd of November.
Beauty. I've just put the link to the Inktober page of your website in the chat, and I'll do that on Facebook too. And
thanks again to you and all the team at Remember the Wild. You're absolutely amazing. You know I love all the work you do. And yeah, let's keep on supporting you so you can help all these wonderful creators get their story out and help bring awareness to our threatened species. There's far too many on the list, as we all know.
Yeah, sure is.
I've waffled a bit now. I'm a bit embarrassed and a bit kind of choked up, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all so very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful evening. I really, really loved it. You make it so much more special by being here. And everyone who's watching the replay, thank you so much for your support. Please tap in replay in the comments so that we know we're watching and we can send you a great big hug. Have a wonderful week ahead, everybody. And don't forget, we've got 2 more days left, 2 more prompts.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's a real pleasure.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Micha, for your incredible work.
Amazing, Micha. Thank you so much.